Before we even get into today's episode, I just want to say that all the views expressed in this video is my own. Also, my English isn't that great, but that shouldn't invalidate the points I have to make. So, as of the time of writing, I've put in a total amount of plus minus 20 hours, and I've yet to finish the game. Bearing this in mind, let me explain to you why I've not taken to this game as much as I would have liked. When we think of Souls-likes, the first thing that comes to mind is hard game, hard bosses, die, repeat, and sweet satisfaction when we overcome these obstacles. If you had asked me prior to this game releasing, which game I was most hyped for this year, I would have told you it is not in fact this game. It was Lies of P. But it was a close second on my list, and this was a good year for game releases, stacked with big AAA Game of the Year contenders. So when I say I was disappointed when I finally got my hands on Lords of the Fallen, it's coming from a place where I was prepared to instantly fall in love with it. Needless to say, it's not what I expected. So the main purpose of this video is to address some of the comments I've made in my previous videos, and also to further elaborate on some of these points. At a glance, it looks like I was angry that the game was kicking my ass. And if I'm honest, yeah, I kinda was. Oh, did I get... You fuck. But to be fair, I chose a character class that was intended for advanced play. Okay, full transparency here, I played the tutorial beforehand with the Dark Crusader class, and fought the first boss after the tutorial area, and it was so easy that it boosted my ego. So when I created my character for my actual recording, I went with the Pyromancer, ignoring the warning, and in a way challenged myself to go with the hardest class. And I wasn't about to let the game tell me I can't play an advanced class. Ooh boy, was that a mistake. The point is that I was on the back foot to begin with. So in progressing through the first area, I noticed that the game would throw multiple enemies into each encounter. This would mark the start of my frustrations with the game. You see, what they like to do is overwhelm you with sheer numbers. Now here's the problem. I'm not a fan of playing my Souls games like as Dynasty Warriors. You see, the reason From Software likes to keep encounters mostly one-on-one is because it rewards you with a sense of accomplishment every time you defeat them. This sense of accomplishment is achieved mainly because the enemies are formidable by design. Anytime you fight a regular mob enemy, there's always the potential to get thrashed by the enemy if you're not paying attention. What Lords of the Fallen does is simply swamp you to create difficulty. It almost feels like an afterthought where the dev said, it's too easy. And the response was, just add more enemies. So what they did was create a gameplay loop where dying after being surrounded by multiple enemies would feel cheap, and I would direct my frustration at the game. It's usually at this point in other Souls games that you as the player will get frustrated at yourself for screwing up. No, this ain't it. This ain't it. This is not it. You know that anger you felt when the 3 archers sniped you while you were focusing on another idiot that was placed there just to pull your attention? Yeah, that frustration is increased twofold when you're sent to the Umbrell Realm. Oh, the Umbrell Realm. Where do I begin? I don't like the Umbrell Realm. Though I will admit, it's really impressive what Hexworks have created here on both a technical and visual level. The problem I have with the Umbrell lies in its application more than its nature, if that makes any sense. Forgot to put my light on. What I'm trying to say is that I do see a version of this game where I can tolerate and maybe even enjoy this feature, but as it stands, I'm not a fan of how they force you to use it. Often in a level, you'll be forced to switch to the Umbrell at certain points to solve minor puzzles. An example would be ladders and platforms that only exist in Umbrell, or waterlogged areas that will clear up once you switch. At these points, it is necessary to make the switch in order to progress through the level. It is at this point where my stress levels will skyrocket because the Umbrell is stressful by design. Let me give you a quick breakdown of this world. When you die, you go to the Umbrell. Here, the world becomes a spooky hellscape. Enemies are more numerous, certain areas will transform, and your health will be half withered. Also, healing in this world will be half withered as well. Oh, and if you stay in the Umbrell for too long, a hunter will be deployed to hunt you down. Oh, the Grim Reaper's here! My soul is being, like, extracted somehow. This sucks. So naturally, I like to avoid this area as much as possible. I do appreciate the fact that it's there when you die, and you essentially get a second chance, much like the resurrection mechanic in Sekiro. The problem is that I hate giving up my second chance willingly, especially when I'm put into such a stressful environment. The only way to escape this realm is death, resting at a vestige, or activating one of the idols scattered throughout the level. I can tell by the placement of these idols that the devs intended for you to use these immediately after the puzzle sections that force you to switch in the first place. You may ask, then what's your problem with these puzzles? Well, you can only use the idols if there's no enemies nearby, and trust me, there's always enemies nearby. Because in this game, enemies will hunt you down until either one of you are dead. These guys will not let up, and what's worse is enemies are so easy to aggro. I will usually attempt to draw out enemies one at a time, but more often than not, a nearby enemy will catch wind of this and join in on the fight. Apparently everyone in the land of Mondstadt believes in the buddy system. Oh, for fuck's sake. Let me end off this segment by saying, I see the potential in this feature. An invisible world that holds secret items and shortcuts only available to the ones brave enough to traverse it. If you hear me out, I'd like to suggest an alternate implementation of this feature. Step 1. Drop the compulsory nature of the realm shift during exploration. Step 2. Reserve shortcuts exclusively for Umbrell Realm. These include the invisible ladders, moving platforms, and flooded areas. Step 3, and this is going to sound a bit weird, but remove the idols. This turns the Umbrell Realm into an area that rewards a high risk, high reward playstyle, and creates the possibility of completing the game from start to finish without ever needing to access it. Obviously, this won't stop players from dying and going there, but it will remove the necessity of jumping into it if you don't want to. This to me encourages a more cautious approach to level exploration, and eventually when you're familiar with the map layout, you can opt to explore the Umbrell Realm for additional rewards. Now here's something I find baffling when the reviews dropped. Nearly everyone praised this game for its level design, and honestly, I just don't see it. There's been times where I was completely stuck and I had to consult a walkthrough to progress. The game does not always do a good job of guiding you in the right direction. Saying the game has great level design based on the beautiful background vistas and the fact that the world links up, much like Dark Souls, is a bit of a stretch. I'm saying I'm very impressed with the world they created here. So while you're out exploring the land of Mondstadt, you might expect to take a methodical and cautious approach to clearing the level. This is how I play all my Souls games. It allows you to comb through the area for any valuable items and also give you a clear idea of the map layout. This kind of approach can be rewarding and incredibly satisfying. The knowledge you gain from playing this way can be useful when returning to farm currency or even finding secret areas and items. This game though does not encourage you to take this approach. In fact, I will often start off this way, beginning at the checkpoint or vestige, and will eventually succumb to the sheer number of enemies the game throws at you. It's at this point where I frantically throw caution to the wind and immediately start hunting down the next vestige. This was the general moment-to-moment progression throughout the game. I feel like there's no time to stop and smell the roses, and that's really just a shame, because the world Hexworks has created here is visually stunning. Overall, I think some of these reviews were blown away by the pretty looking visuals and calling it clever level design. Because it feels like it's meant to be rushed. They discourage you from taking your time in exploring. Oh fuck. You know that moment in a Souls game where you see an enemy in front of you and his back is turned slightly towards you? You attempt to sneak up and get a free backstab, and just before you attack, an archer that was hiding in the corner snipes you. And now the guy you were trying to sneak attack is alerted. Usually the response is, "You son of a bitch." And you'd smirk because the game just tricked you. To me, it seems like the guys over at Hexworks adopted this trope and applied it to every corner of the game. Yeah, it's funny once in a while, but when almost every encounter is designed this way, it just becomes annoying. That's how I would describe enemy placement in this game. Almost every encounter has an aggressive melee type character, and further back there'll be a sniper or projectile based enemy. This kind of pressure adds an extra layer of frustration to an already stressful fight. The worst part is even when you try to pull an enemy towards you and isolate him, somehow all enemies in the immediate vicinity will be alerted. Now the melee characters bum rush you while the snipers spam projectiles, and all this makes for a terrible time. Eventually I started predicting enemy placement before I even saw them, and you know what? There were so many times I guessed correct. It's like they have one trick and they milked it at every turn. So often will they place an enemy in front of you and then...
Surprise, motherfucker!
There was a concealed enemy to the right. What makes this especially stale is even if you predict this kind of attack, you aren't rewarded in any way because the enemies will be alerted and still attack you. This to me is Hexworks compensating for the lack of complexity in enemy design by just throwing more of them at you. This epitomizes the overall approach they've taken. Add systems to make it harder on the player. Here are a few other issues I've added. I'm gonna try to get through them as fast as possible. Seedlings. These were an unnecessary addition to the game that feels like a change for the sake of change. Bonfires have proved to be a tried and true feature throughout the years, and in my opinion, was not in need of an overhaul. All the seedling does is disrupt the rhythm and balance of the checkpoint to checkpoint runs. And before you tell me you get enough seeds from the world and enemy drops to place them before and after boss fights, I say why not just cut out the middleman and just place the vestige in those spots. As it stands, I feel like it's just an added stress that does nothing to improve the experience. It feels like change for the sake of change. And yes, I know once it's New Game Plus, you're gonna have to rely on these seeds because vestiges are near non-existent. And that to me sounds like a very interesting challenge. But on your initial run through the game, I feel like it's just unnecessary. I'm so tired of this shit. Parasites. You know those blue floaty things that protect certain enemies with a shield? They feel tacked on to simply create an extra layer of difficulty to what might have been a simple encounter. Having to pull out your lamp to burn these things slows down the flow of combat. And once again, it adds a bit of complexity to the encounter without adding anything fun or rewarding. If you remove this mechanic completely, I'm sure it wouldn't be missed. Oh my god, hold on, let me do this in the middle of a fight. Okay, now I can attack you. I don't... Oh, fuck me! Yeah, okay, let's do this again. Oh my, that is so fun. The camera often locks onto the wrong things and sometimes struggles to track enemies correctly. Okay, this game is going ham and locking onto a whole lot of stuff. No wait, why am I locked onto this? Your character takes way too long to pick up lost vigor. Often you would just have to tank a hit or two in order to recover it. This is especially noticeable in smaller boss areas. Why isn't it just instant? The controls are probably the best layout I've seen in a Souls-like, with one exception. The A button doubles as jump and interact. You have no idea how many times I've tried to pick up an item or use a ladder mid-sprint just to leap past it and sometimes off a cliff. That's exactly what I was talking about with the fucking jump button. I just wanted to grab the ladder. Ah. I think Elden Ring got it right by splitting these actions between A and Y. One last annoying thing was, they locked boss weapons behind an item that's quite easy to miss. I know for a fact some of you missed it too and had to look up a guide to find it. As a package, I feel Lords of the Fallen missed the mark of what makes a good Souls-like. The systems they've implemented does enough to make the game difficult, comparable to an actual Souls game. But at what cost? You see, when you die in a Souls game, it's completely normal to get frustrated. But that frustration comes from oneself. The feeling that you screwed up, whether you were too hasty in a specific situation, or there was a lapse in concentration. It felt like it was on you. From Software was very good about doing this and making the player feel like it was an error on their part. This would encourage the player to get better in order to overcome these challenges. This is a satisfying and fulfilling loop that would ultimately lead you to complete the game. What Hexworks have done here is misinterpreted this design philosophy and confused it for one that attempts to evoke the same feeling through sheer frustration. And after a few hours of play, I came to realize all of these factors, be they major or minor, all contributed to one simple fact. I wasn't having any fun. Don't zip off! Oh my god. That is so delayed, what the hell? Fuck! I think I'm seeing this game's true form now. And I'm not sure I like it. Once more, it might not be for me. Fuck off! I just want to add, since I started writing the script up to the time of recording, the devs have released a few patches. It seems they've made adjustments to some of the systems I took issue with. Namely, enemy density, enemy accuracy, the aggro range, and also seedlings kinda. I want to reiterate, all these takes are my views and my opinions. None of this should be taken as fact. I want to stress this is not a bad game. Far from it in fact. It's just not what I was expecting. Let me remind you, I wouldn't be disappointed if I didn't care for the game. I was super stoked when I heard we were getting another Lords of the Fallen. That initial reveal trailer with Danzig Mother still gives me goosebumps.
Mother, tell your children not to walk my way.
As a Souls games enjoyer, I thought I would take to this game no problem. Unfortunately, and to put it simply, the game is not for me. Even though I have not completed the game yet, I plan to, and who knows, maybe I'd update you guys then. Lastly, I want to please ask that you take it easy on me with the language and essay structure. This is the first time I've attempted something like this. These words are my own and I think it shows. Also, don't be afraid to express your view on this game and let me know where you stand. In fact, I encourage you. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.